fasten your seatbelts and get ready. First of all, I want to welcome both Eric Maine and also Tom Coughlin to the call. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Shane. Good to be back.
Thank you, Shane.
Let's maybe go into a little bit of a background, or how did this massive project with Kinesis get started in the first place with Indonesia?
You know, it's an interesting story. And it's a little bit inspirational in itself, I think, because it must be almost 4 years ago now that we embarked on this journey with Indonesia. So it's taken some time, but we've methodically sort of stepped through it to the highest level, obviously, in Indonesia. Now, it all just started with a user in ABX. His name was Eka, which is quite a common Indonesian name. And he basically just wrote a very excited message on our web form, saying how he wanted to build out a business plan in Indonesia and commercialize ABX at the time, because Kinesis wasn't around in Indonesia. Not knowing any background about the individual, Mr. Eka, or anything like that, we thought, okay, well, we took it as a grain of salt. Still got in contact with him, but one thing led to the next. Eka proved to be a very well connected and also experienced individual from the financial and trading world. He started connecting up us with various different parties, including some of the heads of the banks. I think we were on some kind of trip, and I think passing through Singapore at the time, and thought, okay, well, Eka made a bunch of meetings, and we decided to stop in Jakarta for that round of meetings. And really, it was eye-opening experience, just from the point of view that the appetite of the demand coming from Indonesia. There was, from memory, there were a few regulatory hurdles, and we had to take a sort of a front row position as far as assisting the regulators and the government with actually writing the regulations for gold trading, electronic gold trading in Indonesia. And it has been a long journey, but that long journey is finally it's reached this point now where we're about to basically open the floodgates and switch everything on. And so it's really exciting times. There's been an incredible amount of work go into this over the years, and here we are, get to enjoy it with the Kinesis community.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go into some specific projects that the entire community is going to want to hear about. But just before we do that, Eric, tell us your side of the story in terms of how you got involved in this massive project with Kinesis as well.
Sure. Thanks, Shane. And yeah, welcome from Princeton, New Jersey. So hope everybody's doing well out there. Things here are pretty good. So yeah, as Tom said, look, we've had integrations with some of the largest elements within Indonesia, from banking, regulatory, financial services, the National Futures Exchange, and the post office, of course, and some of the large religious organizations, including the largest in the world, NU, with 100 million members. So so once Eka had gotten in touch with us, as Tom said, we started the process of evaluating what the potential would be, what the process might be for us to get involved. And on the back of initial meetings, it became clear that this was going to be a very holistic project, because so many different elements within Indonesian society were going to be involved. Between the post office and NU, they touch millions of Indonesians on an everyday basis for lots of different elements for their everyday needs, including financial services. So it was a good segue for us to understand how can the gold business, really be implemented with Indonesia that will have an impact on society. Look, it's already culturally a very important asset. to Indonesians. And yeah, so we, with that eye in mind, we embarked on several different projects together with these large organizations.
Awesome. Well, I know there's many, many, many projects, but we'll try to break this down into a few categories on today's call for the benefit of our community out there. Let's start off with one that's very, very exciting, and that is the Indonesian Postal Service and their app called POSCO. And maybe talk us through maybe how we got started there and where we are right now with that project as things start to as the floodgates start to open up.
Yeah, sure. And it is very exciting, and it is imminent. So POSCO and the Go portion of POSCO is both about movement, Go, and gold as well, because it's a well-known acronym in Indonesia. So the POSCO app, which includes many different applications for payments and mobile banking, tied in with utility companies, and et cetera, and many things that the Indonesians need to do on a daily basis. And the gold element, which is one of the most important elements to it, that's where Kinesis comes in. And we can announce that POSCO app is to be launched imminently, and is on track to launch by the end of this month. So we're talking about within 10 days. And that's very exciting for us. It's very exciting for them. The first piece that will go out is to their employees and agents, of which there are 45,000. They're mandated to have a POSCO account, and many of them will, of course, see the benefit because it's culturally important asset, and especially in these times, to be able to invest in physical gold is a little challenging. And with a mobile application integrated with Kinesis, it makes it very easy and cost effective. So we will expect that to be very successful. Now, this has not been an easy integration because there are elements to it that are pretty sophisticated. So, Kinesis is based in US dollars. And although we have other pairs that go through euro and other fiat, but unique to Indonesia, of course, it's the Indonesian rupiah is the currency, and that's what they need to facilitate within their accounts on POSCO. So there is a real-time integration on an FX basis between US dollars and rupiah that happens within the application itself. And that's facilitated by one of the largest banks in Southeast Asia, CIMB, which is headquartered in Malaysia, but has one of the largest presences in Indonesia, as well as other countries throughout Southeast Asia. And in addition to that, and so of course that's all done because we're launching. But in addition to that, CIMB, and this is important to understand the target market that we're going for, and that's the underbanked and unbanked, and well, everybody else in between, of course. But this POSCO app includes a CIMB bank account for every account that's opened, okay, automatically. Now it's a static bank account, meaning that it's not it doesn't have a debit card or anything associated with, but it is a bank account with an IBAN number, etc. And it also through that integration, CIMB can facilitate people putting on deposits on withdrawals, and that goes through PostGiro, which is a mobile banking element within the post office, which is pretty widespread. We've mentioned it before, but the post office is the largest non-bank financial institution in Indonesia. So they have all the banking rails, on rails, off rails, and their primary element for that is called PostGiro. So all these bank accounts, what makes it good for Kinesis is it makes the KYC, AML from our standpoint automated, because they already have this bank account that has already been opened through their own KYC AML process. And so so the opening accounts are very easy for us because they're already KYC'd, number one. And number two, because of the integration with the deposits and withdrawals, everything's automated from our end as well, as far as people utilizing the currencies, the Kinesis currencies on that platform.
So my understanding is that imminently 45,000 employees are going to be using it, are going to be playing with it, are going to be utilizing this, and in the future it will roll out to their customers. Is that am I right here? Is that correct?
Yeah. So the 45,000 are mandated to have the POSCO app. That will take some time to ramp up, but not very long. And then the progress and the process that they've instituted internally is, once we have those accounts open and going, then that's the proof of concept, obviously, and the thing is a very marketable thing to their normal use base, which is many millions of Indonesians use the post office every day, as we've said, for paying the utilities, for obviously mail services, etc. So they'll be able to market this to their natural constituents. But that's step two. But there's another element at the same time to going out to new target markets. Mm-hmm. And in fact, they've already integrated and have agreements with some of the top travel agencies that provide travel agency services for the Hajj, for travel to Mecca. Now, on average, there's 1 million Indonesians that go to Mecca every year, and each person the cost is around 30 million rupiah, $2,000 US. So that's $2 billion a year just for travel to Mecca each year from Indonesia. So the post office, through the POSCO app, has integrated with 3 of the top travel agencies, and people, they don't have the 2,000 or the 30 million rupiah right up front. What they do is they save over time, so that when their time is ready, they'll have the funds. So it's basically a savings thing that these travel agencies facilitate. And so now, using Kinesis and KAU as the saving module, that incentivizes everybody. It incentivizes the travel agency because they're going to get referral yields. It incentivizes those that are going to travel because they'll have a holder yield until the time that they've built up the amount to go to the Hajj. And of course, for Kinesis, as with anything on these apps that are bought, sold, sent in terms of KAU, contribute to the Kinesis velocity and the Kinesis yields.
That's huge. And the next topic that I really want to touch on is because we talked about this before, was the remittances between that corridor of Indonesia and Malaysia. And maybe just touch on, and maybe we'll get Tom also to jump in here on the opportunity here for Kinesis and where we are in that remittance side.
Sure. So let me start. I'll start with the Indonesian piece, and then maybe Tom can chime in on what that might mean, globally and within Asia and even outside Asia. So within Indonesia, yes, one of the largest corridors for remittances is the Malaysia-Indonesian corridor, which is the one we're going to start with. It's about $2 billion US a month that flows from 3 to 5 million Indonesian workers, migrant workers in in Malaysia back to Indonesia, in small increments, $400 or $500 on average. And so the post office is a great conduit to facilitate that. And POSCO app and Kinesis jointly is a perfect, low cost, very efficient, and fast way to do it compared to all the competitors like Western Union, MoneyGram. So much more expensive, so cumbersome, etc. In Indonesia, on the Indonesian side, from the post office, everything is all ready for that to happen, and they are ready to to market it and facilitate it there. It's already built and ready to go through the Kinesis integration to do that. So the update now is about getting the Malaysian side on board. It's been a little challenging in these last couple of months of not being able to do face-to-face meetings with those in the Malaysian post office or some of the larger Indonesian retail companies that will help facilitate this as aggregators. But that will happen shortly. One side is ready, the Indonesia side is ready. Now we have to just close on the Malaysian side of how all those the migrant workers there can integrate and put cash into the system on the Malaysian side, which then gets churned into Kinesis and fiat coming out the backside in Indonesia through the POSCO, all through the POSCO app. So
Amazing.
I would say that's going to follow on fairly shortly, within the next couple of months, I'd say.
All right, and Tom, over to you. I just want to maybe just touch on the magnitude of remittances, not only in Indonesia, but what it means and why is Kinesis so uniquely, qualified to handle that huge market?
I mean, firstly, let me just say this. If you look at the true scale and scope of the Indonesian project here, we're really in an amazing position to be able to demonstrate the true power of the Kinesis system. Yeah, we're rolling out through an application which is interfaced into the Kinesis and ABX system, which is regional specific. So it's been built out to be Indonesian friendly. It's got Indonesian language. It's using the Indonesian rupiah. It's connected into Indonesian banks. Now, what that is doing in itself is creating a closed loop ecosystem, firstly within Indonesia. So, this has been a long-term sort of build out, but what you can see now is, and say the differences between, what we have with Kinesis is, and I consider Kinesis to still at this point in time being, like a soft launch, as we still put together all the foundations to be able to build this massive building that we're building, the foundations of success. Well, this application within Indonesia, it's closed loop. So it's connected and interfaced into the banks, into merchants, in the travel space and other spaces as well. There's even, micro loans and all these different ancillary services outside of the core service. Now, that's been built in parallel to obviously Kinesis. And initially it was built to plug into just solely ABX. But, obviously the project expanded as Kinesis came along. There were talks with the post office initially. Initially, the post office were building out their own blockchain-powered payment system for themselves, and in collaboration with other postal systems in the region. And basically, they just handed it over to us. They said, well, if you guys are doing it, then, we might as well just connect into you. So we effectively assumed the responsibility for the project that the post office wanted anyway. So it wasn't like we came along and had to try to sell our solution. It was already there. There was already a lot of strategic planning and approvals that had already been passed, and we came and stepped in and did it. And what an amazing way to kickstart this system. So firstly, what's amazing about this project, it's already from day one closed loop. So basically the main foundational building blocks have been put together. It's closed loop. Someone can plug in, get real world value from day one and get everything together. Whereas, Kinesis, as everyone knows, we basically soft launched. We're still putting together all of our foundational sort of building blocks, which, as I've sort of alluded to in the last one, is going to come through in short order. And, it's really exciting looking at the roadmap. I was going through the roadmap with the team today, and wow, we've got an exciting rest of the year ahead of us. It's going to blow people away, I think. But this, if you look at a startup business and you take a system now, let's for a system to be successful, it needs adoption, right? And and if you start with a new system that organically evolves, you need to sort of bring in one person, another person here, there, and eventually it starts to snowball. Boom, from day one, what a great kickstart with this Indonesian project where we bring in thousands of employees of the post office. We're plugging into travel agencies. We're plugging into, some of the largest religious associations on planet Earth, 100 million members, NU. And that's just to get the system started. And as you know, as everyone knows, this system's been built out to organically spiral, because it provides incentive and reward to everyone. It's a system for the people. So we're bringing all these people in, and if you think of it from a practical point of view, if they have to have a Kinesis account, they're getting paid in Kinesis currency, KAU, well, it's KAU, then I'm going to want to send that KAU to someone else. And if that person doesn't have a Kinesis account, I'm going to say to them, you sign up for a Kinesis account. Hey, it's great. I can send you some currency in the space of a few seconds. It's there on your phone. And there it is. And that's how the system grows. And that's how it spreads from one person to the next person. And we get this thing kickstarted. And this is just one country. I mean, wait until you see what we're doing on a global stage as Kinesis, as call it the mother code for all of this, really starts getting going. And you're going to see more instances like what we're doing here in Indonesia and other parts of the world. And no Bitcoin, no Ethereum, no Tether, no any other cryptocurrency for that matter, or any other system that I'm aware of has had this kind of kickstart. So it's going to be it's very exciting what's happening here. It's only a very small part of our business, but a parallel monetary system to sit alongside another monetary system inside one of the most populous nations on planet Earth. That's a pretty big project that most people, I'm sure, would value in the billions of dollars. And just on that point alone, we're being watched by the likes of the United Nations, who consider this to be the largest public-private partnership that the world has ever seen, in the sheer scope of how many people we are touching, and the scope and size of how big this thing could go, because it's an ecosystem, right? It's once you're in. And so it's really exciting. Obviously, on the the cross-border remittance, cross-border value side, we stepped into this with already a bit of a regional plan that extends beyond Indonesia. So there you go again. It's not just Indonesia. So the first corridor being Malaysia, fantastic. But then other corridors will be opened up. This has been considered a case study. Case study, ticks the box, boom, we're on to the next one. And then, rolling out through other post offices and using these post offices as, effectively bank branches that can easily bring in the unbanked, the underbanked, and start solving real world problems, that exist out there today. And, bringing in like achieving sustainable development goals, and there's a lot that we're really make a difference here. So it's very, very exciting, and really looking forward to it. It's been a long time coming, as I said, probably 4 years, I think. And but here we go. It's imminent. I know that word's been used before, but the launch sequence starts this month. Well, assuming that all testing goes well, which we don't have, from what I've heard, that's imminently complete, and there's been nothing red flagged yet, then we're good to go before the end of the month.
Awesome, awesome. Eric, over to you. I want to maybe ask you to describe to our community members and also to people just after hearing this short, beginning of this call or wanting to get involved with Kinesis. Describe what does it look like for the community as this thing goes, as it goes live, step by step. Maybe describe what the community will see.
Yeah, sure. And look, I think the main takeaway from in that vein is that through these apps, and in a moment we'll get into an update on the NU and NU Gold app.
Mm-hmm.
But for any apps that are integrated through Indonesia and with Kinesis, they are automatically integrated with the Kinesis monetary system and the global monetary system. So that means any time that in any one of these apps, KAU is bought, sold, transferred, it contributes to transaction fees on the Kinesis monetary system, and therefore also contributes to yields, contributes to velocity, et cetera. And as you can imagine, with these various elements coming on board, that could be quite significant from a velocity standpoint and therefore a yield standpoint. One thing I want to mention before we move on from off of POSCO, just to because Tom mentioned something very important, and I hadn't highlighted it as yet, and that's the microloan element. Now, this doesn't only apply to POSCO; it applies to any of these apps, including NU Gold. But behind the scenes, there's already 7 Indonesian banks that have committed to these apps that are within Indonesia integrated to Kinesis. 7 banks that have committed to providing capital for microloans in the tune of several billion rupiah. So, to start, several million US dollars as capital to provide microloans against gold positions within these apps. That's one thing. The second thing is there's already discussions happening with the government Hajj fund. So the government of Indonesia has a fund that helps augment people's ability to travel to Mecca for the Hajj, and that fund, that government fund, is $7 billion US, and they're in discussion. This is government to government, right? This is post office to another government element where they're saying, look, there's inflationary pressures within Indonesia. So holding, they obviously have a portfolio, this fund of holding government bonds and equities, et cetera. But wouldn't it be great if you had something stable within that portfolio? And, we talk about this in global terms as well, of, allocating a diversified portfolio to include gold. This makes it very local for Indonesia to be able to say to the fund, allocate 2%, 5% of your fund into gold assets, utilizing these integrated apps that integrate into Kinesis. And those discussions are have already happened. And so once these are up and going and have some traction, I think that will be that will happen, and it'll be quite successful. It'll be quite beneficial to the whole community, Kinesis community. So that's the story on POSCO.
Yes, and Tom, I want to just as I'm going through here, I'm thinking about just as a member myself, and thinking about people that might be listening in the U.S. or Mexico. They might be listening in from Australia, might be listening in from Europe, thinking, what does Indonesia have to do with me as a member? And just before we move into the next big project, maybe talk about, as that money is moving through, as that gold, as those transaction fees, the entire worldwide community wins. And so if I'm sitting here, whether in Europe or, like I said, in Canada or Australia, I think the members should be jumping up and down right now and holding their breath and just fired up about what you guys are talking about right here.
all members as a collective of the system will benefit from like any kind of expansion or integration within the system, vertical integration, horizontal integration, and any kind of expansion, whether it be at the exchange level, whether it be wallets and wallet to wallet transfer, where fees are generated, fees are shared as a collective. So everyone benefits from the, call it the collective expansion of the system, and then the money velocity, the fees that are generated within the system. So obviously, as it pertains to Indonesia, the more utilization of the system in Indonesia and the more fees are generated, then the more revenue is shared. As I think everyone knows, you know, Indonesia is a country of approximately 270 million people, the fourth most populous, or is it fifth most populous country on planet Earth? I think it's fourth. It's an incredibly large country, and it's an emerging economy, and you know, just so yeah, it's just another example of how the like expansion benefits everyone, and that's what I love about this system. We're all in it together, and we individually reward people for their utilization and activity in the system, but also everyone benefits. And let me just say this as well, because you know I've got the roadmap for the next little while sort of fresh in my head at the moment, because you know we've gone through it and ascertained all the priorities, and you know really hammered in on you know what the logical sort of sequence is here. And I, you know, our intention isn't to be cryptic about it as well, but you know you're going to see a lot of expansion in the system over the next while, both from a user point of view, as we get to a stage where we can market to different verticals. And that might be, you know, like different target markets. For example, you know, we've spoken about the precious metals markets before, we've spoken about the crypto markets, and then into sort of everyday use, whether it be by an individual or corporate or perhaps even a government. But you're going to see this start to come out. So, you know, like there's things like you're going to see a whole new reface of our web user interface, which means that it's going to be a really nice user experience for everyone. And that gets us into a position where we can then start to promote to, say, the precious metal markets, because, you know, they're going to get any user is going to get a great experience from using it. Or even the crypto markets. We've brought online, you know, Bitcoin, and Tether's about to be launched. So that's the highest market cap and highest volume cryptos, and you'll see, you know, expansion of other cryptos and also some innovative products in there as well, which I think everyone will get excited about over time. All this volume that happens through any of those products gets shared with the collective community. So that's a beautiful thing about it all. But you know what I was about to say is, you know, so you're going to see PM market activated, crypto market activated, and then as debit card, you know, yields, new interface, mobile banking comes out, where people have their own bank account numbers, can actually be paid into their bank, or actually, you know, be paid by an employer in KAU or KAG. So then you've got, you know, enterprise level Kinesis. So, you know, you've got the retailer individual that is looking for value, but then you're going to see a suite of solutions as it pertains to the enterprises, payroll, tax modules, accounting modules, all interfaced in together. And then, you know, for there to be basically a corporate solution. And, you know, you're going to start to see some real volume through the system. Let's put it this way: when companies can start to pay their employees properly and easily, seamlessly, efficiently, cost effectively in KAU and KAG. We'll be doing it with ours. If anyone wants any money from me, they have to sign up for a Kinesis KMS account, you know, and you're going to see the same thing happen in Indonesia, and it's getting this massive kickstart. So yeah, that's just my little comment there. And perhaps on another webinar, we can get online and sort of, perhaps talk about the roadmap in a little bit more detail. We can't give away everything there because we've got to keep some trade secrets. But it'd be good to give the community a bit more transparency there.
Awesome, awesome. Well, that's exciting to know that it doesn't matter where you live. If you are fortunate enough to be positioned in the Kinesis community now, or you're about to be, that you win every time Kinesis comes out with a new announcement of who's opening up, and all the amazing stuff that's going on in the background is absolutely mind-boggling. And this thing, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But knowing that anybody can open up an account and they can start winning as a result of Kinesis winning is phenomenal. With that said, I want to go on to
100%.
another topic, which is even it just gets better and better and better, and that is NU Gold, the NU Gold app, and there's 100 million. Okay, that's not a mistake. 100 million members. And let's go to Eric and let's touch on this project and where we're at, and maybe how it got started even, and talk to our community about this particular project.
Sure, Shane, sure. Absolutely. So it came about in the same way that the post office came about, the same way that the first iteration through this person who was an ABX user, Eka, and part of the business plan that he had, that he presented to us at the time was, about all of Indonesia and all the touch points that could be. And of course, he had, as we found out quite quickly, he had very good contacts with the highest levels of all these organizations. So the NU, look, 100 million members, as you said. It's the largest Muslim organization in the world. It's a social organization. They provide, social services to the poor. They organize trips to different mosques, whether it's within Indonesia or outside Indonesia. And usually, I've been in airports in Jakarta and elsewhere where there's, hundreds of NU people. They all have their NU regalia on. They have either it's a T-shirt or a coat, and they have even luggage that's branded with NU, and there are hundreds of them at a time going on trips to to other cities within Indonesia to visit a mosque or a seminar, which they also facilitate for Islamic teachings, etc. So it's all invasive throughout Indonesia, and is a household name. Everybody knows it because most of the people are members of it. So as far as Kinesis goes, look, close on the heels of POSCO will be an app called NU Gold. Just by the fact of its name, you can tell what it's all about. It's about the ability for these members to be able to efficiently save and spend and buy and sell gold. And it's important to note that the NU Gold app is built on the same technology as POSCO. It has the same UX, the same UI, most of the same applications as far as making payments to utility companies, etc. And of course the Kinesis Gold element. So that is already built and done because it's just basically a rebranding of that POSCO, the technology company that sits underneath these apps, which is owned by Eka, by the way. And it's become quite a good technology firm in its own right on the back of all this. So that NU Gold app is already built. The launch of that, as I said, will be close on the heels of POSCO. What they wanted to wait for, and as a Muslim organization, everything that they want to present to their members, including in the gold space, is about being Sharia compliant. So as the community knows, we already have some Sharia board advice from the UAE, from Indonesia, that Kinesis KAU is Sharia compliant. So that's fine, and NU has agreed, of course. but the government is also weighing in, and they wanted to wait for the government to make a proclamation. Because the way that you have to remember that the regulation within Indonesia in the gold space has evolved, and a lot of it has evolved because of us, because of ABX and Kinesis. So there was just to back up one step, as I think I've related before, there's been a new regulation within Indonesia regarding gold. And so there's a new designation called digital physical gold. And what that did for us is to carve out Kinesis and KAU as part of that digital physical gold, and rather than being designated as a cryptocurrency. So anytime down the future where there's elements of cryptocurrency, whether it's a utility token or a security token, that's all out the window for us. That doesn't apply to us because we're squarely within this new regulation as digital physical gold. Now, the second part of the regulation, and that was passed about 6 months ago. The second part of that is the government wanted to make a proclamation that digital physical gold is Sharia compliant. Okay. And so that was what NU was waiting for. They want it to be not just from a Sharia board, but from the government saying this digital physical gold is Sharia compliant. So that regulation and proclamation just happened in the past 2 weeks. So that's great news for Kinesis, great news as a facilitator, going outside of Indonesia to other Muslim nations, that this might be a path forward for other countries to consider. And so that last piece having been done, now NU and we're now ready to integrate the Kinesis system into that NU Gold application that's already built. Now I can say, what is the marketing? What does it mean for Kinesis about NU Gold? So even though there's 100 million members, and that goes to every village, every community, every town, every city, every province, every state, it's pervasive. But there's a hierarchy within NU. Okay, so there's leaders at the federal level. There are NU leaders at the state level, the territorial level, the provincial level, the town, the city level, the town level, and the local level. There's when you add up just that leadership, it's 100,000 NU members, and from the federal, the top guys that we've helped integrate this with, the president and director general of NU, that will be mandated to those leaders to have a NU Gold app, and they of course are incentivized because they'll be incentivized internally to go to their constituents, whether it's at the state level, territorial level, provincial level, city level, town level. You get the layers here. They'll be incentivized to go downstream to those constituents to also have the NU members sign up for NU Gold. And why not? It's a very easy application to use. It has many good utilities, including an easy way to invest and buy and sell gold. So their expectation, not ours, but their expectation is that there'll be several 100,000 accounts by the end of this year. So within the next 6 months, 300,000 to 500,000, I think is the number that I've heard. Now, that's a lot of accounts. That's a lot of business flowing through. The other element for all this is the vault, right? So mandated within this digital physical gold regulation was that gold that's traded in these modems needs to be vaulted in Indonesia. Now we have in working with, there is no gold vault within Indonesia right now. So that regulation, doesn't really make sense at the moment. But because we've embarked with a vault partner to build our own vault there, Kinesis Vault, and we've gone down the road, the post office, NU, they're all partners with us in this, okay, which is important because that becomes a government, again, another public-private partnership on the vault. The regulators have carved out again from that regulation saying, well, until that vault is built by this public-private partnership, Kinesis and the post office and NU, et cetera, these applications and these gold apps, whether it's POSCO or NU Gold, they can utilize the existing ABX vaulting network, but specifically Singapore. So until the vault is built, Singapore will be used as the backbone for Kinesis, and that makes life a lot easier for us, because it's going to take time to build a vault, etc. But I just wanted to mention that project is still ongoing and still part of the ecosystem that we're going to build there, because it's part of the regulation. And believe me, that will be a good confidence booster and an element that will foster quite a bit of take up from these applications and these NU members and POSCO constituents and employees, because they know the gold is sitting in a secure vault within Indonesia. Yeah.
That's exciting. I get that all the time. People look at Kinesis and they think it's a cryptocurrency, and it's almost like scratching their nails on the chalkboard. I like what you said. It's a digital, physical gold, which is exciting. That's because that's exactly what it is, right? Digital, physical gold.
That's right. That's
Thomas, over to you.
I just want to say one thing. You've heard the name Eka mentioned already numerous times in this episode, and that is one individual. And I think this story should be considered to be an inspirational story to others out there. And there is no insurmountable task ahead of them, or there is no project too big ultimately, because this Indonesian individual is basically he has been at the forefront of helping us commercialize this business in an entire country, the fourth most populous country on planet Earth. And this is what I say to my team members out there as well. Things might seem like too difficult or too insurmountable sometimes. Like, just get in there, start opening doors, start knocking on doors, picking up the phone, and wait until you see. Once you immerse yourself in it, then the opportunities will come to you. One door leads to another door, which leads to another door, and next thing, you're surrounded by all these open doors, and you're the demand center. You become the magnet. And that's really what we've found. Kinesis has literally an army of people all around the world that are opening these doors, that are acting as magnets, as demand centers, and purely on a success basis, to commercialize different regions, different countries, etc. They're out there doing it. And that's the beauty of the system, right? Hey, you go turn on a country, you can get a cut of that country. No problem. You go turn on an organization, you get a cut of the organization. That's the referrers yield, right? And, this is the powerful thing about it. So, and this is the system. We're bringing people into the system, and, we're talking, Eric's talking about 100,000 here, 100,000 there, 500,000, 100 million. Those 100 million, as you very well know, they're 100 million potential referrers. And imagine how many millions those 100 million can bring in. That's what gets me really excited about it all. And then delivering the greatest possible solution to them, a complete alternative to what's out there right now. I'm running on adrenaline at the moment, and I think everyone in our team is.
Absolutely. I think, Thomas, by now, I think a lot of our community members are on adrenaline, or their adrenaline just went up quite a bit, and just hearing these awesome projects that are happening right now. I want to move on to another topic you guys have brought up several times on this call, but maybe just talk about, and we'll go to Eric first, and then over to Tom, in terms of the government partnerships. And you talked about the largest public-private partnership ever, or one of the largest private partnerships ever. Maybe just, I want to hear from you in terms of what does that really mean to our viewers, to our community.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. So I'll basically let Tom take that as the larger corporate vision. But one thing I just want to mention, and before we move on about marketing or exposure of what's happening in Indonesia specifically. So as far as exposure, that will have a sequence within Indonesia to itself, right? Because POSCO currently, their first step is they're going to activate their own employees. Well, you don't need to do a press release that you're marketing to your own employees, right? So that's an internal thing. Same thing with NU. They're doing it through their internal membership. So it's not a big blast out story that necessarily at this stage they're doing it. Now, when it gets to a certain level, then POSCO certainly the post office will want to leverage what they've done with their internal employees to then market internally within Indonesia, make a big splash that this is up and going, it's huge, it's big, it's well run, it's easy to use, it includes easy, efficient, cost-effective gold investment and savings, and that allows them to market to their natural constituents as a second step. They have many millions of Indonesians that utilize the post office in many different ways. So they'll have marketing plans that facilitate that next step. And that will also include, once there's these microloans from these banks that have already committed, that means growing that pool of banks that providing microloans, that pool of banks that can refer in clients that they have on gold savings and investment and trading. So the fact that there hasn't been a whole lot of outward exposure on these apps is not surprising, given that they're being done internally to big internal audiences at this stage. I just wanted to mention that.
Excellent, excellent. I guess we're going to go over to to the government side of things and these partnerships. And Tom, my thought has always been that Kinesis has been very, very low key, very, very, very low key. But in the background, this is not low key. This is huge. And my vision has been, or the thought that I've had is, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, Kinesis is probably going to become one of the most used to make real payments, to make, to do real transactions, to be like with these remittances and with these apps going with so many members. I can't think of another coin or cryptocurrency out there that has this much momentum behind it.
Yeah, you could say we've been making hay slowly, which is something my father taught to me at a young age. So we've been putting everything together to have the largest sort of bones to be able to grow the largest sort of architecture to be able to grow this out. And as everyone knows, we've been building a system. And of course, it's an art of sort of bringing together the different components at the right time, so they all sort of fall in line and your stars sort of align, and then it sort of gets it all going. Obviously, these big institutional deals take time; they get long in the tooth. That's a consequence of doing, breaking new ground and disrupting and doing new things. It can take time, and there's bureaucracy and red tape, obviously, and patience is required. I think this has happened. This is the Kinesis community have benefited and inherited a number of years of work in Indonesia, for example, before even the Indonesian project got rolling. So there's quite a significant sort of benefit that the Kinesis community inherited there. But let me also just say this, like we're talking about Indonesia, and we're talking about also the whole the universe, or the grand ecosystem of Kinesis. We're starting to see the stars align now. So the different components are coming together, whereby we can bring what everyone's looking for into the market, being, like liquidity, volume, velocity. And one thing leads to another thing. So, we have this two-tier market structure where we've got a mint, we've got the Kinesis, monetary system, KMS. And for there to be new currency brought into the market, it has to be minted. And then in the crypto world, they call it market cap, but really it's, like money supply expanding. And the mint acts as like a central bank to well, not really like a central bank, but it creates the money. But the money is actually gold, of course, and it's not just digital figures sort of that just been concocted or paper printed out of nowhere. So what I'm saying is the Indonesian project and its context as far as the broader ecosystem goes is it's going to bring volume, liquidity, and velocity. And volume, liquidity, velocity begets volume, liquidity, velocity. The more velocity and liquidity and volume in the system, the more it's going to bring more of it into the system. So, and then you're going to get more minting and everything starts to grow. But this is a great kickstart for us. It's a catalyst, to get everything rolling. And it's good because we've got that closed loop ecosystem in Indonesia. We're still putting it all together outside of Indonesia in the grand sort of Kinesis global ecosystem that's coming together fast. The debit card's just around the corner. Yields, new beautiful interfaces. It's all sort of rolling out, and not to mention mobile banking. So with all that coming online, once again, liquidity, volume, velocity begets liquidity, volume, velocity. And you'll just start to see it, momentum garner. And next thing, someone who's not a Kinesis holder will be saying to a KVT holder, hey, have you heard of this Kinesis system? Can I just, can I pay you back the $100 in KAU? Oh, okay. Thanks. I'll receive it. I'll take it. Or, like we're going to have systems where you can just send the money to an email address as well. And just you get an email and open up and do your KYC and there it is there for you in your account. So it's all being built out to grow. We've been patiently waiting for the right time to sort of kickstart it all. And Indonesia is going to be a fantastic kickstart to get it all rolling. Get that volume through the system, which is going to bring more volume through the system.
Awesome. Well, when I think of Kinesis in Indonesia, I think of three kind of categories in terms of there's a very poor or unbanked or unbankable. There's the middle class, and then there's the upper class. Eric, can you just touch on how both we're talking about NU and also POSCO, how they affect each of those categories of people?
Sure. Well, the middle class and upper class is relatively easy because they're already sophisticated users of whether it's mobile applications, investment vehicles, etc. So they're an easier touch. You just give them the ability to do something fast, easy, and cost effective. That becomes a very powerful message to that group. Okay, so this is about, and again, since gold is so culturally embedded within the Indonesian populace, that means if you're giving them gold at a cheaper level, but believe me, the physical gold price because there's no vault within Indonesia, because there's no real good facility for trading spot physical gold within Indonesia, the spot physical market within Indonesia is very clunky and it's very expensive. So when you overlay the Kinesis system onto these applications, which touch so many Indonesians, including the middle and upper class, it becomes a very easy message to say, look, this is real gold because you can touch it, you feel it, you can see it through audits, through the reporting that's on the back end of our VMS system, etc. And it's so much more cost effective and so much more easy to buy and sell and send, etc. So I think from that standpoint, those target markets are relatively easy message. It's cheaper and it's faster. For the unbanked, there's other challenges. And the challenges for them is about how do I get to be part of the financial system when I really don't have access to it at the current time. And this is why it's important that these applications already come with a bank account integrated within. So every account that opens on POSCO, every account that opens on NU, whether it's the poorest of the poor, or the richest of the rich, comes with a very large capitalized bank account, a bank that is well capitalized, and an account integrated within the apps. So already, and then that facilitates off ramps for the underbanked and unbanked, because then they can utilize in the case of POSCO, PostGiro. Now NU has already agreed to use PostGiro as well. Again, these are partnerships that aren't, these are not segregated verticals. So the post office is going to help facilitate things for NU, and NU will help facilitate things with the post office, and primarily what that means is around payment systems and on-ramps and on-ramps and off-ramps. In the case of POSCO, it's PostGiro, which NU will utilize. So that the combination of a bank account for the poorest of the poor and the ability to have off-ramps with PostGiro is a powerful thing for the unbanked. And so that's a good model going forward. It won't be the model for every place that we do this. There'll be some places where we'll want to have a separate debit card, and because Tom's talking about here, this is being a closed loop. It already includes everything that you need here. But some places we go might not have that facility as well implemented, and so a debit card may be necessary. And in Indonesia, there may be elements of other markets that come into the ecosystem where a debit card would be beneficial, but it's not necessary for these first two pieces. So
Yes.
yeah, underbanked
Well,
and
even
unbanked.
the unbanked, the unbanked actually have a mobile. Most of them have a mobile. So now the unbanked become they're banked just through that mobile app, which is very exciting. Tom, over to you. And I'm just trying to imagine, what do you believe the impact this is going to have on the entire nation of Indonesia?
Well, it's going to bring efficiency, certainly, to the unbanked and underbanked. I think I've said previously on other episodes, or other webinars, that there's circumstances where there's a lot of travel going on just to be able to get to the post office, to be able to pay for a utility bill. And so it's going to bring a lot of ease and comfort and efficiency into just payments. But then, of course, gold being the greatest store of value that the world's ever seen, it really provides a safe haven store of value to the citizens, and a strategic asset for the nation as well. Which the more gold that a nation has, then really the firmer and more stable the entire economy is, and their currency for that matter as well. So very pleased to sort of be at the forefront of providing such impact and positive impact to the people, and it's going to be an amazing project to showcase. A lot of people are watching it. It becomes a case study for replication, copy and paste across the world. And it might just be drilling into one component of it, or it might be taking the whole holistic project as it pertains to Indonesia. But it truly is amazing, and actually, we want to do some put together some documentary evidence of this over time, whether it be, the impact that we're having on an individual. It might be an individual farmer, or, an underprivileged individual, and show how, Kinesis and the POSGO system is, really assisting with their everyday life, perhaps elevating their conditions, and show, just give an example of that. And we'll be doing this all around the world, and how Kinesis is making a difference, how it's making, positive impact on individuals, and because there's a lot of different cases. Well, it's infinite at the end of the day.
Eric, over to you. I just want to maybe just talk about the roadmap in terms of development moving forward with with all of these projects, and specifically in Indonesia.
Yeah. So look, as we've said, POSCO is the launch is imminent, on track for by the end of this month. NU Gold will follow shortly thereafter. I would say within the next month or so. And then the third one is the National Derivative Exchange, Jakarta Futures Exchange, JFX. They also have an app, and called, again, built on the same technology, same UX, same UI. It's just a rebranding, but that is to their many millions of very sophisticated investors, and the ability for them to more, rather than saving, it's more about trading, trading around the gold market, taking profits when they can, etc. So that will be about the same time as NU Gold. That's that piece, and these other elements then take on bigger significance. So as far as integrating with more banks, building the vault, but also again, because this is government to government, there's a lot of government elements that can be brought into this ecosystem, and I've touched on them before, and they are on the roadmap, both with our Indonesian partners and from us internally, including facilitating the ability for people to pay their health insurance using Kinesis. That's a big thing in Indonesia. It's basically a free healthcare for all. Well, nothing's free, right? But it's a small payment, but especially the poor people. There's private hospitals and then there's government hospitals, and even the poorest can facilitate the access to the healthcare system with a very modest monthly payment to the government. Well, the government, it's already government to government conversations happening, with Kinesis being the facilitator for paying those health insurance payments to the government, because the government benefits. They will have the refer yield from all the people that come into that ecosystem. They'll, as they take in those payments and they hold the KAU before taking fiat out to pay whatever expenses they need to pay for the hospitalization, for the doctors, etc. That creates velocity within the system itself. So that's one element. There's many other use cases, believe me, because we're talking about a monetary system sitting alongside the existing one in Indonesia. So you can imagine how it can touch everybody. And just on the public-private partnership piece, yeah, look, this is definitely a case study, and Tom makes a good example of what it would mean to individual farmer. In the use case of him, he's got a mobile phone, he's got a smartphone, how it benefits his life by using POSCO, NU Gold, or the JFX piece, and the gold element and the Kinesis piece of that, what that means to him. And that will be very powerful. And I think that's encased within the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and that's one of the directives of that United Nations directive is to help the poor, help them, and including in the remittance space of bringing down the cost of remittances around the world. So all those elements will be used and encased in a case study in conjunction with the United Nations, because they're very excited about what we're doing as well. And that works both ways. So the government of Indonesia would be very happy to have exposure with working with the United Nations, and the United Nations very happy to work with what we're doing there, because it fits their directive on these sustainable development goals. Yeah.
Excellent. This has been an amazing call. I'm sure the community is very excited to hear all of these developments and what's happening. I was just thinking as you were talking there that every single account, every time someone opens up a wallet, they automatically get a link. They can choose to use it, they can choose not to, but they can send that personal link over, and they qualify for that referral yield, not one time, but forever. So who are you referring? You could refer an individual, you can refer a company, you can refer even a government organization like we're talking about here, a government organization. So this is very, very exciting. And I want to leave everyone, Tom, with a treat here today, because every time I hear you talk about this topic, I get fired up. It doesn't necessarily, it does have to do with Indonesia, but it has also to do with the world. I want you to just talk about your views on the difference between physical metal and the paper price.
Yeah, they're obviously two very different things that I know have been covered and studied and researched and navigated by different members of our team, including myself and Eric as well, in great detail, and of course Andy, who is jumping on top of skyscrapers, screaming from them to increase awareness around this. The paper price of gold is largely set through basically the banking system. The fractional banking system is, at the end of the day, it's just a digital price and can really be, seamlessly manipulated. And there is a quite a large disconnect from, something that's infinite in supply and something that's very, very limited in supply, in fact, rare. And that's physical gold and physical silver. So precious metals. So, with that being the case, I think I can give, maybe the community a little bit of a taster for something to come, and that is going to be a product that highlights the difference between the paper price and the physical price. And this is something that's been worked on for years, to put it in context. Going way, way back, 5 years ago, we started working on this, and it's been critiqued, refined, perfected. Um, it's there. It's not something essential, obviously, to our ecosystem to make it closed loop, but it's something that's going to be very exciting. And we like to see ourselves as somewhat revolutionaries here, leading the charge forward for disruptive change for the better. And this is going to be something exciting and almost accelerate, I think, the way that the world should go, as in the view of money, looking at money. And it's going to highlight, obviously, the difference between physical metal and its monetary qualities that go back thousands of years, and what we have now, which is digitally created numbers, fictitious numbers on a screen. And so it's really going to highlight that and show the difference, and perhaps even pull those two markets apart. That's what it's designed to do. It's one of those stay tuned in things, but more information will be coming.
Well, Tom, I remember the very first time I met you and Andy over in the UK back on July 1st of 2017. You mentioned that product, and you mentioned this, and as soon as you said it, I mean, as soon as you said, I'm just going, wow. But you've been working on this prior to that, and you continue to work and work and work. And is there, is there a particular time that people should be looking at to hear a little bit more about what you're talking about here, because it's massive?
Look, I think we're gonna have. I think they're gonna have to stay tuned for another episode. Let's put it that way. But it's going to be a very exciting product, and I'm going to be very excited to give this opportunity to the Kinesis community. I mean, there's so much exciting things coming up that it's really happening. Whether it be soon, it's going to be a really great time to be minting, for example. We'll have auto minting coming out. We'll have big, large, minting and metal supply coming into the system. You're going to see our market cap or money supply grow exponentially. We're processing some of it now. So that's going to grow. You're just going to see a lot of movement, a lot of developmental velocity over the next while, whether it be product releases, whether it be, increased volume, increased market cap, increased minting. We'll do a push for minting, and I want to do a series on perhaps even a bit of an episode on minting. Now that we're locked down, here I am out on the family cattle station in Western Queensland, hoping that my internet will hold up because it's raining heavily outside and we're going through satellite internet. I've got my cowboy hat here as well. Hang on, I'll put it on for the community. There we go, the Australian Cobra hat. So it's given me the opportunity to obviously, get my feet on the ground and be connected with the community. And I want to stay connected with the community as well. And, we're going into an exciting phase now. And it's tremendously exciting, and looking forward to, as these different incremental releases come out and talking about that and bring perspective and insight and context to it, as far as those particular releases, those particular launches, and as they pertain to the overall sort of commercialization of the system and how everyone benefits from it at the end of the day.
Excellent, excellent. Well, with that, Tom, I think you've just pretty well guaranteed that no one watching this will ever miss another episode, because which is awesome. Over to you, Eric, for final thoughts as we wrap up this call today.
Yeah, I just want to say, thanks to the community for their involvement. Their feedback is always welcomed, and we look to be challenged. That's expected, and we want that, frankly. And look, we are not sitting still. Indonesia is one thing. We're juggling lots of different things, and it's about sequencing and getting the timing right and getting the products right, to put them out and so that they're ready to go from day one. So Indonesia, yes, that's ready to rock and roll. And but there's many other things within the pipeline, as Tom has mentioned some of them, and we work hard and diligently to try and make sure that the sequencing of those outputs are the way they should be. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Eric. We really, really appreciate it on behalf of the entire community. And over to you, Tom, for final thoughts for today's call.
Yeah. So yeah, I consider this quite a big call today. I just want to assure the community, sort of echo Eric's sentiments. There's a lot of both strategic planning going into everything, but also, tactical planning as well. So, tactical being the more granular sort of elements, but, all within the overall strategic commercialization side. So, yeah, no, it's just pretty much what I've previously said, really, looking forward to bringing greater insight to everything that we're doing moving forward to the community, and actually, delivering some exciting releases and outcomes over the next while. I hope everyone's staying safe and sound as well. This has been obviously a little bit of a challenging time, which I hope everyone also understands that we're extremely well equipped for. Our team's been actually highly efficient during this time. We're all globally dispersed and connected anyway. I mean, you're there in Italy, Shane. I'm in Australia, outback Queensland. Eric's in New Jersey. And we got the team on from UK, and we're connected all across the world at the end of the day. So it hasn't affected us in any way. In fact, we just benefit because we're all set up for safety and security, and so we just benefit to the the challenges that get presented on pre-existing systems, incumbent systems. So it's benefited us. And you know, obviously, it's a very sad thing as far as the human impact. I hope our community hasn't been affected from the humanistic side. And thoughts and prayers with you if you have been. But you know, during these times when systems get tested, then it presents opportunities for new systems to come in and replace those existing systems. And we just happen to be one of those existing systems.
I think exactly. I'm so excited about it. And with that, talking about Australia, talking about New Jersey and the USA, here in near Venice, Italy, let's now go over to the UK, and it's that time again for Talking Gold with none other than Andy Maguire. Over to you, Andy.
Wow. Thanks for the update, guys. I mean, this is so exciting. I mean, I think you've described the import of this, but I think it's yet to dawn on the global markets, the effect that what you've just discussed is going to have. So look, so excited about it. I'm sure everyone that's been listening to this podcast to this webinar is actually going to be equally excited. So, but let's do our thing. I try and keep this within 20 minutes. So I'm going to try and keep things on point. What I'm going to do is I really am distilling the most asked questions gathered over the 2 weeks between the webinars, and then I'm going to cover them as best as possible. And I know I've had so many requests for updates, especially given what's happening right now. So really, based on these questions, and these questions range, goodness me, from general to technical, from traders. But so I try and keep these gold and silver market updates interesting for everybody. And bottom line, what everyone wants to know is where we expect the price to be short and medium term. Now, long term is a no-brainer. I mean, so those of us who simply exchange depreciating unbacked dollars, i.e. your cash, pounds, euros, whatever it is, to buy physical bullion, we're doing what our ancestors have been doing for over 5,000 years, building wealth and independence from central planners, which is what it's all about. But now, you wouldn't be watching these webinars if you didn't already understand the value of investing in gold and silver. So whether that's just holding it as an investment or a hedge against debasing fiat currencies, which for our fellow Kinesis monetary system users also provides a secure way of adding alpha to your physical holdings. And I think we described that last time, but this is a very valuable point. But however you participate in gold and silver, what we'll do is we'll concentrate on what to expect over the next 2 weeks when we do each webinar. Now, most questions revolve around the price levels dictated by the paper market, and many of us seek to time some fresh additions at the best possible price. So, you know, if you're a stacker, no problem at all. You're doing the right thing anyway. Whatever the price, average in over time, it's a no-brainer. You will succeed. But I mean, obviously, there are a lot of other people looking, and we all look for the best price on it, whatever we're doing. So now, we boxed quite clever into last month's paper-driven discount on the 30th of April. If you remember, by the time, and if you remember what happened there, and if you go back to the old previous webinar, but at the time that we record the next webinar, we're going to have encountered another end-of-month paper gold derivatives mark-to-market event. Now, so let's look at the various drivers that will assist us in timing our next purchase in between. Now, over the last few webinars, we've been discussing how the recent March 23rd paper market fracture exposed how deeply disconnected from real physical supply demand fundamentals the spot gold and silver LBMA fixes have become. It's an important point. This is because the COMEX tail has been wagging this 10 times larger spot gold dog far too long. Now, this is the game that has depressed gold prices over the last 50 years. Now, the COMEX capping solution was put in place a couple of years after Nixon ended the dollar convertibility to gold, and that was in August 1971. Now, because paper gold was able to be created in unlimited quantities, and because gold is continued to trade as a foreign exchange currency cross, the freshly diluted gold price was able to be managed by the Fed against gold. That is until it broke in March bringing us into historic gold revaluation, to a historic revaluation event, which is going to be actually looked back on by historians. We're privileged to be witnessing history in the making here. So now, once it became clear that the COMEX price setting casino had broken, in early April, we saw a knee-jerk attempt by central planners to double down COMEX paper market dilution by increasing position limits, along with the launching of a secondary paper market contract. And just please review the last couple of webinars for more details of why this contract is so important to the insiders, but why it will fail. Now, we looked at how the cobbled together what is called the 4GC contract, which represents a quarter share of a 400-ounce Loco London bar, how that began trading at an average, if you remember, of a ludicrous $22.45 discount per ounce to its directly exchangeable 100-ounce GC contract. Now, not only did it expose this attempt to patch up paper market liquidity as just a sham, but that these so-called trades should have been deeply disturbing for the regulators. Now, following our formal complaints to the CFTC, the FCA, the Bank of England, this 4G contract has now come under regulatory scrutiny. Now, given its spurious structure and its bad trading records and its lack of adoption by legitimate hedgers or insiders, this official solution to add back evaporating paper market liquidity is going to fail. And as I tweeted out last week, RIP COMEX, 1974 to 2020. Believe me, when we look in the rearview mirror, that's essentially what we're going to see. The COMEX is going to be the loser. Now, since our complaints to the regulators, out of the 24 lots traded last week, this illegal discount between contracts narrowed to an average of just $6 per contract. But given this is a contract that is one-to-one exchangeable with the GC futures contract, this was still a $55,500 unfair discount to the house. So only when the required upcoming physical hedging and investment solution is available, with a real live 24-hour market price developed based upon real supply and demand flows of physical bullion, will we get this, will we start to see things resolved. Now, it's a massive demand. I cannot really reiterate enough. There's a massive demand for this physical solution, which has prompted some very large competing interests. Naturally, when there's a demand for something, it will get filled. Now, although the physical solution we outlined last time has to be Loco London, physical gold, because of logistics, physical gold by its nature and lack of counterparty risk is fungible with any other global physical exchange. Now, this will create a real tradable global price. Now, based upon current information, the launch of such a physical exchange or exchange is now just a matter of a weeks away. We're seeing some collaboration going on right now. Now, despite the House's best efforts, paper market liquidity is evaporating. And as this liquidity drains out, it's going to expose very large underwater short bets. They're going to have to be squared to sidestep physical delivery obligations. And as this occurs, a real tradable price will emerge. Now, COMEX is no longer trusted by the second-tier banks. We've gone through that. They require a proper physical hedging solution. We've looked at this in detail over the last few webinars, but this is also becoming evident by the recent contraction in the lifeblood COMEX open interest. Now, the smaller SI futures contract, silver futures contract, provides far better visibility into these same actors' footprints in GC. Now, along with a steep reduction in GC hedging flows because of the lack of trust, the very large continued bullion inflows into the ETFs such as GLD, SLV, also serve to reduce the GC and SI open interest, i.e. the futures open interest supporting these gold and silver derivative contracts. Now, I think the important takeaway from this is that while both ETFs and futures have similar counterparty risks, and believe me, they do, we still see these flows into the gold ETFs increase in the hundreds of tons. And more recently, each and every day, we're seeing literally, in some cases, hundreds of tons coming in a single day, as with silver today. Now, this in turn, alongside physical demand, cuts off more sources of paper market liquidity, which is bullish for the physical gold market. There's no two ways about it. Now, the other thing is, and I'm just looking at a couple of questions, we had a lot of questions about algos. Now, obviously it's a big subject, so keeping it short. When we assess open interest, it has to be factored in that approximately 95% of all COMEX trades are algo driven. They are non-human trades. Now, the majority of the algos are what we term as neutral, in so much as they simply seek to scalp a tick either side of a price. They're agnostic to direction. However, these neutral algos are able to be heavily influenced by one or two directional high frequency trading bots, and which really, these HFTs hold the largest concentration of open interest. Now let's call them what they are, casino chips. These HFTs are controlled by the house. Now we can determine this is the case because the majority of these HFT actions exceed intraday CME house set position limits, which are 6,000 contracts. Forgot, we used to be 3,000, as we say, doubled to 6,000 lots. And clearly, when they're exceeded, they clearly get a free pass. Now, despite the many complaints that we've lodged to the regulators, it quite clearly means that officials are involved in this, because no bank would dare, unless they had a free pass, to actually breach those limits. So really what we're saying, the only governance to price is the levels the house is exposed to physical market delivery. That determines the point where the lines cross between paper generated supply and the requirement to physically deliver what is demanded. So that's the only governance. And it was precisely this disconnect on March the 23rd that blew up the 50-year-old COMEX paper to physical conduit. Now, the key over-the-counter liquidity providers were called upon for delivery, but having no physical to back up hundreds of tons demanded from them in physical form, nor, importantly, the ability to hedge these over-the-counter positions on the COMEX without incurring significant losses, which, by the way, they are still suffering. These key spot market liquidity providers bailed from delivery commitments, leaving a broken pricing mechanism in disarray, which it still is. Now, given that COMEX is no longer fit for purpose as a hedging tool, paper market supply is drying up. It's not rocket science to anticipate a much higher physically determined gold price when you have less dilution, paper market dilution, into that equation. Now, the outcome's inevitable, and it will remove the requirement for a single point gold and silver fix. Now, this 100-year-old single point LBMA fix, obviously it wasn't LBMA in the past, but it's this single point fix as set in London for our last 100 years. These fixes are archaic. They're no longer fit for purpose. And as these fixes determine the squaring up the price point for trillions of dollars worth of bilateral derivative bets, a rolling fix removes the very last manipulation lever relied on by officials and agent bank insiders who are privileged to have gold accounts with the Bank of England. Now, we'll look at a realistic short-term fair value for gold shortly, but a rolling live fix will serve to accelerate the gold and silver revaluation process. However, insiders are not fighting an upcoming revaluation, and they're already long physical for their own accounts. We've demonstrated this multiple times, especially as a wholesaler. We can see this. On the other hand, officials who are on the wrong side of this trade can ultimately settle unallocated contracts with a single keystroke. I mean, let's face it, 7 trillion in QE, that provides a lot of juice to do so. And that's 7 trillion to date. But so, you know, with a physical solution inevitable, insiders and officials will now unwind as many bearish bets as possible to front run upcoming real supply demand derived prices. Now, directly after the gamed over-the-counter OPEX mark-to-market event on the 30th of April, if you remember, we'd already determined after that event that by the footprints in the option structure that was left, that the Bank of International Settlements did no longer require gold under 1700, which they did on April the 30th. So that's quite a big difference. Now, global markets simply require a higher gold and silver price to simply function. Now, because the paper market liquidity solution is failing. Now, when the overdue gold price reset comes, and I believe we're now evidencing the first minor leg of such a move, it's going to be as a direct result of the unwinding of massive naked short LBMA unallocated gold market bets linked to billions of dollars worth of underwater mismatched derivatives. Now, more immediately, and despite the House doubling position limits and cobbling together this so-called 4GC paper market liquidity solution, pent-up coiling GC and SI open interest began to dislocate from the captive directional HFT algos. Now, if you remember, a few weeks ago, we drew attention to a very visible, because of the silver market is so much smaller, it's easier to see what's going on under the smoke and mirrors. We've been noting that there was a very visible algo in play, and it was undoubtedly officially run, and it was the ES to SI. So in other words, the S&P 500 correlated with the silver futures contract. This captive algo had been showing intermittent signs of breaking over the last 2 weeks. Even though nothing seemed to be happening with the price of silver, this was going on. Now, this is the same directional algo that sucked in dangerous amounts of naked short bearish options bets. Now, these are held by the specs. Now, this finally broke last Thursday, forcing very large delta hedge futures buying to offset losses, i.e. if you've sold an options call, you're exposed to unlimited losses, and as the price rises into the level that you've bet against, you better start buying futures to offset your losses or close those contracts. So this telegraphed that the same actors in GC were about to pull the trigger too, because it's a smaller market. It really does lead what's going to go on in gold. So with that in mind, I know everyone wants to know this, here are the option sweet spots as of last night. Now in SI, the momentum bets we've observed, last week at 2 weeks ago at $19,950, $90.95, look to be under attack. Now, bear in mind that these naked short options bets were largely in the hands of the sucked-in specs, with the house holding the long side, and as is the case in any casino, the house wins 95% of the time and the specs 5%. So clearly, it was time to commence pulling the trigger. And I think we've seen that trigger start to get pulled. Now, based upon pricing and structure, looking at this option structure in SI, it reveals that it is the specs accustomed to selling naked short calls, which we just described in this contract, have been carrying the bulk of the bearish naked short sold options bets. So it's not just good enough looking at a big call structure and saying, well, that's resistance. It's simply not the case. It certainly has been the case, but not when you look at the pricing of those. And while these bets have historically provided good alpha for these specs, until March, that is, these bets were largely protected by very similarly structured insider capping bets. So the JP Morgans of this world, the Goldmans, etc. In other words, the house was on their side. However, although it suited the house to play these specs, while at the same time building cheap, strong physical positions outside of the casino, recognizing a change in behavior, insiders have begun unwinding remaining naked short bearish bets and have clearly taken the long side of these spec bearish bets. So a clue that specs are being set up for a major rinse, and this may be dragged out until June, so I'm not saying tomorrow, we may need to get through options expiry, but it may be dragged out till June, is the price around the OPEX resistance at $19.90. This looks like a compelling rinse of very large short bets that specs assumed was profit in the bank when they sold these calls. And medium term, the bulk of liquidity providers see silver, as we do, at a minimum price of $21.50. I'm not saying this month, I'm talking about after options expiry. Although silver, when it starts to run, it's hard to stop. Now, a similar setup in GC. Now, it's the specs, again, largely carrying the naked short load. Now, this could be targeted at any time. And the prior resistance at $1,700 is falling away, as we've just described. And that's because officials don't require it at that level. So sort of a quick cup of tea. Obviously, we get pretty excited about these things. Now, so the fully fledged breakout, it may take, as we say, until June options expiry. That's May the 26th, or indeed, the Bank of International Settlements OPEX expiry on May the 29th, depending on how quickly the physical solution takes to implement, that is. And in the interim, we'll take it one step at a time. But we see 2200 GC as a minimum price ahead of the physical exchange opening. Now, we'll be recording our next webinar 2 weeks after the COMEX and the larger over-the-counter monthly options expiry points. So this is the event where long and short June call positions are closed, or as is most common in a non-delivery market, to roll off the board into the next most liquid front month contract, which will be the August contract. So with official footprints evidencing no requirement to hold gold below 1700, a higher gold price will evolve. Now, the Fed has already provided trillions of QE, therefore a few billion to support the too big to fail the taxpayer insured banks could be slipped in under the radar. Ultimately, officials need a higher US gold price, and the move from a net short position to a net long position could be effected under the covers long before the casino traders realize the house has done it. However, ahead of this move, we'll see a steadily rising price as insiders start to move further long against the specs. That pretty much sums up where we have come from and where we as wholesalers see it's going to go. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing you again in our next update in 2 weeks. In the meantime, expect some end of month volatility, but June looks extremely promising. And I think we're going to have something in the rear view mirror to talk about next time.
Well, thanks a lot, Andy Maguire over there in the UK. I really appreciate you, and we appreciate those updates on the gold market. Thank you so much. And as we wrap up this session here, I just want to bring up two little points. Number one is make sure you download the app. If you haven't already done it, download the app. You can do it at the Apple Store or go to Google Play. Just type in Kinesis, download it, and also rate and review it too, if you can. And the second thing is every single wallet, when you open up a wallet, you're automatically going to get a referral link. So if you know someone who holds money or who sends money, who spends money from time to time, send them your link and let them enjoy the benefits that you're about to enjoy as a Kinesis community member. So with that, thanks a lot.